Let's talk about something quintessentially American, our love for cheap goods. From the dollar store to big box retailers, we're surrounded by products that seem almost too affordable to be true. But have you ever stopped to wonder how some of these items are made so inexpensively? The answer might surprise you, and it's closer to home than you think. We love a bargain, but what if I told you that some of the products our own government buys are made under conditions that would make even the harshest 19th century factory owner blush? The story of how these goods are produced is one that rarely makes headlines, but it's woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. This hidden story unfolds inside the U.S. federal prison system, where a little-known corporation called Unicor operates behind locked gates and razor wire. Unicor, officially known as Federal Prison Industries, is a for-profit corporation owned by the U.S. government and managed by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Its mission? To provide work programs for inmates, but the reality is far more complex. Unicor manufactures a staggering array of products, from office furniture and electronics to military uniforms and body armor. The workforce? Federal inmates who often earn just pennies an hour for their labor, working long shifts in conditions that can be grueling and monotonous. Critics have called this system modern-day slavery, arguing that it exploits a vulnerable population with little power to refuse. Activists and former inmates have spoken out, demanding reform and fair compensation for prison laborers. Taxpayers fund the prisons, and a government-owned corporation uses inmates as a captive labor force to produce goods that are then sold to federal agencies, and in some cases, private companies. The profits flow back into the system, but the workers themselves see very little benefit. This system raises profound questions about justice, labor rights, and the true meaning of freedom. Is it ethical to profit from the labor of those who have lost their liberty? And what does it say about our society's values? Tonight, we'll pull back the curtain on Unicor, exposing the realities of prison labor that most Americans never see. We'll explore how a loophole in the 13th Amendment, meant to abolish slavery, actually created the legal foundation for this system, allowing forced labor to persist in the name of punishment. We'll examine how Unicor's government contracts give it a powerful advantage, often dominating markets and leaving private businesses struggling to compete or forced to close their doors. We'll trace the historical roots of prison labor, from chain gangs and convict leasing to today's high-tech prison factories, and ask, should inmates be stripped of their right to fair compensation, or is there a better way forward? The answer to that question reveals what we truly value as a society: justice, profit, or something in between. Tonight, we'll confront the uncomfortable truths behind the hidden factory behind bars. Remember the 13th Amendment that abolished slavery? It's one of the most celebrated milestones in American history, a turning point that marked the end of a brutal chapter and promised a new era of freedom. But as with so many things in law, the devil is in the details. The amendment states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States. On its face, it sounds absolute, a sweeping declaration that no one in America can be forced to work against their will. But then comes the catch, an exception that changes everything. Except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. This single phrase, tucked into the amendment, opened a door that has never been closed. This exception clause is the foundation of American prison labor. It's the legal bedrock that allows prisons to compel inmates to work, often under conditions and for wages that would be unthinkable outside prison walls. The result? A two-tiered system. On one side, free citizens with rights and protections. On the other, convicted individuals who can be forced to work, sometimes for mere pennies an hour, or even nothing at all. This clause didn't just permit a form of servitude, it actively legalized it for a specific class of people. After the Civil War, Southern states quickly seized on this loophole, using it to justify convict leasing and chain gangs, practices that kept Black Americans in bondage under a new name. Over time, this legal justification evolved. Today it's the reason inmates across the country can be required to work in factories, sew uniforms, or assemble products for private companies and government agencies, all while earning a fraction of minimum wage. The amendment freed millions, but it also created a new category of Americans, those who, by virtue of a criminal conviction, could be subjected to involuntary servitude. The transition from slave quarters to prison cells was, for many, a change in name more than in reality. This loophole is what allows Unicor, the government-run corporation, to exist and thrive. Unicor employs tens of thousands of inmates, producing everything from military uniforms to office furniture, all under the banner of correctional industries. Without this exception, forcing inmates to work for pennies, or sometimes nothing at all, would be blatantly unconstitutional. But with it, the practice is not only legal, it's routine. The official justification is that this labor is correctional training, a way to teach skills, instill discipline, and prepare inmates for life after release. On paper, it sounds like rehabilitation. In practice, it often looks very different. The government argues that prison labor is part of the punishment, a necessary step in the process of reform. But critics point out that the line between rehabilitation and exploitation is razor thin and often crossed. When rehabilitation starts to look like a business model designed to maximize profit, we have to ask, where does punishment end and exploitation begin? The answer isn't always clear. Over the decades, that line has become dangerously blurred. The economic incentives are powerful, and the people doing the work have little power to refuse. The punishment clause effectively handed the state a blank check, permission to use prison labor as it saw fit, with minimal oversight and few protections for those inside. It paved the way for the creation of a multi-million-dollar government corporation, one that now competes for federal contracts and supplies goods to agencies across the country, all on the backs of incarcerated workers. This isn't a radical reinterpretation or a fringe legal theory, it's the plain reading of the text, a loophole hiding in plain sight, with consequences that echo through every prison in America. The 13th Amendment, for all its promise, explicitly carves out an exception for prison labor from the ban on slavery. And as long as that exception remains, the debate over justice, punishment, and profit will continue to haunt the American legal system. How does Unicor operate? What makes it so different from any other business in America? To understand this, you have to look inside the world of prison labor, a world that's hidden in plain sight, yet deeply woven into the fabric of the U.S. economy. Imagine starting a business with a magical cheat code. You don't have to worry about hiring, recruiting, or even paying a living wage. Your workforce is delivered to you, ready to work, and you hold all the power. You get a workforce delivered by the government, pay them as little as 23 cents an hour, and face no unions. There are no strikes, no sick days, and no negotiations, just a steady stream of labor day after day. This is reality for thousands of federal inmates working for Unicor. Every day they clock in to jobs that keep the prison running and the profits flowing, often with little choice in the matter. With labor costs near zero, Unicor has a massive competitive advantage. It can undercut prices, outbid competitors, and deliver products at a fraction of the cost of any private company. Federal law often gives Unicor preferential treatment, requiring government agencies to buy its products. This means guaranteed contracts and a steady stream of revenue regardless of market demand or quality. Private businesses can't compete, creating an unfair market. Small companies are pushed out, unable to match the artificially low prices set by prison labor. The system subsidizes the prison industrial complex, undermining free market competition. It's a cycle that keeps prisons full and the assembly lines moving, all at the expense of both inmates and outside businesses. Profits cycle back into the Bureau of Prisons, creating a perverse incentive to maintain a large, captive workforce. The more inmates, the more labor, the more money flows in. Prisons become profit-driven manufacturing centers, valuing inmates by their productivity. In this system, the line between punishment and profit is blurred, raising tough questions about justice, exploitation, and the true cost of cheap goods. To understand Unicor, look at history after the 13th Amendment. Southern states used the punishment clause to replicate forced labor systems. They enacted black codes, criminalizing minor offenses to arrest black Americans. Convict leasing was slavery by another name, leasing prisoners to corporations. Modern prisons echo this history, with inmates working under armed guard. The parallels are direct and disturbing. Unicor replaced cotton fields with factories, but the core principle remains. It leverages the punishment clause to extract cheap labor from people of color. Critics argue this is a continuation of exploiting black and brown Americans. It's a legacy we have yet to fully confront. A wild claim suggests judges can invest in Unicor, profiting from longer sentences. But there's no evidence for this. Unicor is not publicly traded, it's government-owned. The real issue is systemic incentives, not individual corruption. The beneficiaries are government agencies and the Bureau of Prisons. The prison industrial complex has a vested interest in mass incarceration. The problem is the system, not a few bad actors. Unicor is a massive part of the federal prison system. At its peak, it employed nearly 20,000 inmates. In 2019, it generated over $466 million in revenue. Its biggest customer is the Department of Defense. Unicor produces a wide range of products from textiles to electronics. It operates like a diversified conglomerate from behind bars. Unicor's influence is felt throughout the federal supply chain. Reforming it would disrupt a $500 million enterprise. Unicor is not just a program, it's an industry. Its size makes it too big and profitable to easily fail. The system is self-perpetuating, existing because it must continue to exist. Beyond economics, there's a profound human cost. Inmates earn between 23 cents and $1.15 an hour. This barely covers basic necessities from the prison commissary. Deductions for fees leave workers with even less. Inmates often leave prison with little to no savings. The job skills argument is overstated. Many tasks are menial. Workers have no rights, can't form unions, or negotiate pay. Refusing work leads to punishment, creating a coercive dynamic. The choice is between working for pennies or facing punishment. It strips labor of dignity, turning it into an instrument of control. Thankfully, this issue is gaining attention. Activists and lawmakers are pushing to amend the Constitution. A proposed amendment aims to remove the punishment clause. Several states have already removed similar clauses from their constitutions. This shows a growing public appetite for reform. Ending forced prison labor is a moral and racial justice imperative. The goal is to rethink labor in corrections, focusing on rehabilitation. Opponents argue it's costly, but advocates say the moral cost is greater. The debate is out in the open with a real possibility of closing the loophole. Is Unicor modern-day slavery? Officials say no, calling it a correctional program. But when a captive workforce is forced to work for pennies, the word slavery feels accurate. The system is a moral paradox in American democracy. We permit involuntary servitude while championing freedom. Unicor embodies this hypocrisy, exploiting inmates for profit. The history, economics, and human cost are undeniable. The connection to convict leasing is a direct lineage. The fight to amend the 13th Amendment is about more than wages. It's about completing the promise of emancipation. Prisons should be places of rehabilitation, not production. This isn't just business as usual, it's a national disgrace.